boys, did you hear they made a TED television show?
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
aware.
I did.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Based on the hit movie Ted.
apparently it's the most streamed original Peacock original.
What an achievement.
Feels like there's a weird trend going on right now of television
God.
shows of movies that I don't give a shit about. I don't give a shit about the movies, and yet somehow I kind of am interested in the television shows. I haven't watched any of Ted yet. This is based on the
I haven't known you or figured you out for some time. Not going to start trying now.
Yeah, fair enough. This is the movie that was he's got like a friend. It's a guy who's got a friend who's a anthropomorphic teddy bear.
Stoner.
Mhm.
Sure. I mean that kind of comes with the territory, right?
Naturally.
But somebody was sharing some clips of the TV show, and it actually sounds kind of funny. To the point of like, man, maybe I'm gonna watch that TV show.
Well,
That's kind of wild to me.
when you get done with that, and since you like continuations or I guess prequels or whatever it may be of stories, movies.
Yeah.
Big Bang Theory, one of your favorites.
Oh, right.
They had the spinoff called Young Sheldon.
Yeah, it's a threat I've given to Pierce for pilot program.
Well, you might have another threat because apparently Young Sheldon wasn't enough. We need another version of Young Sheldon.
Oh, good.
So I think you're gonna have
younger Sheldon.
It's not Boss Baby. It's gonna be I think more of like teenage Sheldon. And so that's a thing that I'm not fucking bullshitting. I read this.
No, I believe you. I
know. I
did see somebody tweeting about an even younger Sheldon. And
yeah.
What the fuck is happening?
Well, why wouldn't they? I mean, at that point in time, they've got I mean, look, we make fun of it, but we know Jude loves it, and a lot of other people apparently do.
Well, he's
so all that to be said, whenever you get done watching Ted, you got more work for you.
So it wasn't just a one-off thing though. The trend was really when I saw a trailer today for the TV show of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, starring Donald Glover. And I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds kind of good. I didn't care about the Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie movie, but this sounds kind of good.
I had this conversation with my wife because there's been plenty of remakes out there. They usually fly by and nobody, like my wife and I don't say too much about it. Mean Girls has a new movie out.
Yep.
And she's losing her fucking mind that like the audacity that they would make a remake. I'm like, sweets, let me tell you about The Last of Us. Have you heard about this? If you think it's not too soon.
At least Tina Fey's involved.
Well, yes, correct. But I had to explain to her, I'm like, you don't understand. That was 20 years ago. And while you and I can't comprehend that gap in our lives, like we have I cannot make that a physical understanding for my body. That's a long time. That was like when we were getting albums and movies and TV shows from the 80s when we were in 2004. It's really the same thing. So I had to have this big come to Jesus with her about, while I don't agree with it, it serves a purpose and it's okay because it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
There was people who are not alive.
Oh yeah. It's very funny. Johnny's Child's a YouTube star. Everybody knows it.
The best fake walk on YouTube.
And he put out some short about like, guys, did you know that COVID was 4 years ago? And I'm like, kid, there were things that happened long before then.
God. Johnny, you got your hands full, don't you?
I touched some magic cards from 1993 today. Like, don't tell me what's fucking old.
I don't know what's grosser.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I think Mean Girls specifically. I can't remember. Was that inspired because they did the Super Bowl commercial and it did well, or was it the other way around?
The new movie?
We know we're going to make that movie, so we did a Super Bowl commercial.
I'm pretty sure Mean Girls was not only the 2004 movie that we're talking about, but yeah. I'm pretty sure it was a very successful Broadway show post movie.
Was it?
And, yeah, I'm almost positive.
That makes sense.
That sounds right.
So I think
the movie.
So. Yeah, I just think that the Broadway one has kind of propelled and done well and kind of kept that very popular. And again, it's a cult classic. Like the way that we probably talked about The Breakfast Club, in a lot of ways, it carries the same reverence, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just a fucking teen drama.
Hollywood needs a fucking win right now.
They need a
People
lot.
aren't going to the movies like they were before. So anything that is a sequel or attached to an existing franchise in any way, those are the only movies that are getting made anymore.
I know.
I'm
just surprised Chris Pratt's not in it.
Well, of course, everybody wishes Mario himself was in the movie. Anyway, hi guys, it's the Casual Hour. I'm Chase. That's Bobby and Johnny. This is a deep dive episode, which is why I'm talking right now, and we will get into the deep dive topic a little bit later. We are going to still do a little what you've been playing segment at the beginning before we get into our main topic, which I'll tease. We're going to be talking about the PlayStation EyeToy.
Oh,
so get excited for that. I held up an EyeToy in front of the if you're listening to this, to the audio only version of this episode,
sorry,
get fucked.
You can head to our YouTube or Twitch.
Yeah, go watch
youtube.com/casual hour, twitch.tv/casual hour.
There you will not. There's not a lot of show and tell. I bought one. We'll look at it a little bit, but there's more talking than there is showing. Okay. So don't worry about it. But yeah, let's do our normal thing here, and let's get into some what you've been playing. And Bobby, I feel like you never get to go first for what you've been playing. So why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I am happy to do that. I want to talk to you all about a VR game, if that's okay. And
I'll allow it.
Okay, because I think that this is maybe like the most important VR game that I've played.
I'm waiting for this moment.
This game is unfucking believable. Like, it truly is such a good time. It's called Asgard's Wrath 2. This is developed by Oculus. So this is an in-house VR production exclusive to the Quest 2 and the Quest 3. It's a follow-up to Asgard's Wrath that came out a few years ago to much critical success. And this is a game that kind of came, it was a pack-in game for the new Meta Quest 3. And so I didn't think too much of it. Be very candid with you all, like, it looked kind of generic. Like, it looked like a typical VR game that you'd expect. Like, it is a game where you are swinging a sword, blocking with a shield, moving around. So that's kind of the thing. Yeah, exactly. This game is a full-fledged 90-hour action RPG, first and foremost. Damn. It is a fully realized, what I would consider to be AAA quality video game in VR. And
sweet Facebook money.
It's got that sweet Facebook money, and I say this is one of those games that benefits from being in VR, and I think it does a really great job of immersion, but also it's got incredibly smart controls on it. So the game's premise is that you are a banished god that can go into a mortal's body. And in the game, you will end up collecting up to 4 mortals that you are going on this quest with. And it's an open world action RPG. So the first one you start off with is a warrior type. You're kind of going through a very Indiana Jones-esque, including putting a weighted bag of sand on a pedestal to steal something. And you anger a god. And the god's basically going to kill this mortal. You kind of cut a deal and take over the body of the mortal. But in doing so, you've got all their skills and abilities, and you are both 100% aware of each other. So you work together to go and do this. And in a lot of ways, the game puts you into these really fantastical environments that are very much like an escape room. So you're doing some really elaborate puzzle solving while in the room, and then there's some really kick-ass combat. This character you have wields a sword and an axe. And we've all seen Kratos throw the axe. We know what that feels like in God of War. We know how kick-ass it is. But just by flicking your wrist, you throw this axe at things. And that can be used to solve puzzles, to hold gates open, and you flick your wrist back in mid-combat, and you can guide where that axe goes and catch it and decapitate or do damage. You also have a sword that you can parry with. And the game does a really neat thing that when you parry or you get an opportunity attack, a jewel forms on the enemy you're fighting, and you can throw the axe at the weak spot and damage it. The sword also has an ability where if you pull the trigger, it becomes a whip. I can't remember in Soul Calibur the character that had the sword. It's basically Ivy's sword, and you can use that to grapple across the room or pull enemies near you. And as they're coming in, you can catch them midair and throw your axe at them, which is really fucking fun. It's also got a very smart mechanic where if you kill an enemy and they drop a mat, or if there is a pot that you throw the axe at to bust when you're exploring, you can flick your wrist at the item and it comes to you, or you can walk up and pick it up. So there's some really cool things there with it.
When you said walk over, like, are you physically taking steps, or is this the kind of like blinking?
It does a few things when you start the game up. It asks you to calibrate what your comfort level is, and it does a lot of things to make that work. And that's what I was going to call out here. I've struggled with motion sickness in VR gaming, and this is one of the first times where I can use the joystick to move my character like I would in a traditional game. So I am using the control stick to move my lower half, but what I would use my right thumb for to look around, I just use my head for.
Sure.
So I'm using that, and it's really great. Now you can teleport to the blink, as you were saying, and one of the other things they're doing now is anytime you have locomotion, a vignette comes in, and you can adjust the strength of the vignette, and that creates a tunnel, and that makes it a lot easier to keep you from getting sick.
Sure.
That's smart.
So they've got all those things built into it, but this is a full-on, you're collecting materials, you're going and you're upgrading gear, you're finding new gear. It's got like point systems that you can unlock abilities with, and then I haven't gotten all the characters yet, but you can unlock other characters that then you can swap between to do certain things. They have a daily roguelike version built into it that if you get to a certain point in that run, there's a community chest that opens every day at 3 p.m. So it's a daily run that you can go and do where you're just fighting enemies, but they get harder. And depending on where you go, you'll find rare items that you can equip on your character. The story is really, again, like you are a certain type of god that is now dealing with more Egyptian gods while trying to find Loki. So it's a lot of those things.
So just the whole
So like they kind
the
of
whole
tried to make
God
the sequel
multiverse.
to God of War.
Yeah. The first fight in the game to like train you is with a griffin, and that was awesome. Like a very cool, like on a melting ice cap type thing. All the worlds are so much fun to be in. You start in this bar, and it's like just this very cool environment. You can walk around, talk to people, get a sense for what's going on. But I'm finding just such an enjoyable time with it. It is such a cool video game, and it's such a cool experience to be doing this. It's a slam dunk for them. Like, this is an exclusive game that I think is worthy of people buying the gear for. So if you have a Quest 2 or if you have Quest 3, like, this is one of those games. Well, I mean, we all know what Super Hot is. Like, Super Hot was a far more important game before it was a really kick-ass VR one. I would say Beat Saber is a very important VR game. Moss, etc. Power Washer now, or Power Wash them. But this is one of those that I would say you kind of got to have this game if you have one of these headsets. Like, there's really no excuse not to. And if you buy the 3, at least when they were out, you got this game for free. It came out December 15th. So I've been enjoying that, but I have a feeling I'm not going to be spending as much time with it, because a game that I've been playing for a few days now, a game that we streamed on Monday, and a game that I think Johnny started to check out today, so I'll let him chime in here too, is the new Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. So if you have the deluxe version of this game, you get it 3 days early. I subscribe to the Ubisoft Connect or Ubisoft Plus. They give you the deluxe version, so I've had access to it. And they also had a demo on at least PC, so I got to play through the first level a few times now, or the first bit of it, I should say, because it is Metroidvania. But Chase, you've seen this in action. Johnny, you've played it. Before I go into a lot of details, why don't we just do a quick, have we played a lot of these games in the past, and what do we think about what we've seen so far?
Well, you said you get it 3 days early. If you're a normie, does it come out Friday?
Yep, comes out Friday.
Yeah. Cool.
$40 for standard, I think $50 for deluxe. So you could pay $10 more. You get some in-game skins. You get an amulet that does not require a spot to be used, which is helpful, and you get the game early. So $10 gets you some cool stuff.
Sure. So this is like a 2D Metroidvania, classic kind of Metroidvania puzzle platformer stuff with action elements. This is not usually my genre. I've had a few games that I've played in this style that I've enjoyed. Games like Gato Roboto, and Guacamelee.
But you have not
Uh,
played this yet, right?
I've not played this. No, no, no.
Okay.
I'm a normie. I didn't pay extra. I'm still planning on playing it. It was I think it was my one January pick. Maybe I had other January picks. Can't remember. But yeah, this is the one that I'm most impressed by. And then watching you play some of it on Monday, I got to that stream a little bit late, so I didn't see all of it. But it does look cool. I think they've got some really cool ideas when it comes to traversal.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
and so I think there are some things in there that I would not get as frustrated when I played, not as frustrated as when I played games like, um, shit. What's the bug one that everyone
Hollow
cares about?
Knight.
Thank you. Yes, I just
Yeah.
kept saying Silk Song
The
in my
bug
head. I was
one
like, that's not
everyone
a real
cares
video
about.
game. There's nothing. There's no video game called Silk Song. Surely.
No, there's not.
God.
But
Not
like
yet.
playing through something like Hollow Knight, I definitely got frustrated of having to build the map, and despite how cool everything looked in that game, I didn't really enjoy playing it that much. And I'm not a Metroid guy either. So I didn't play Dread or anything like that.
Sure.
But that's where I'm coming from. Johnny,
Okay.
how about you?
I mean, I don't play a ton of these types of games. I mean, there's I played a little bit of Ori.
I think I
And,
probably have the most tolerance for the
Metroid.
genre on the show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I tend to fizzle out after a while. So I played a good deal of Hollow Knight, but eventually the backtracking and like all the trappings that go along with it, like eventually I'm like, okay, and then I've seen what I need to see and I move on. But this makes an incredibly strong first impression.
Yeah, big time. I don't want to give away too much of it because I think that's one of the cool things about Metroidvanias is that the game tells you what you're going to need in a way that you might not have expected. But I do want to talk a bit about two things with this game. One, this is made by Ubisoft. It is the team that makes Rayman, which makes complete sense when you see this game in action, and you can see a lot of care that goes into.
It's a Ubisoft original, Bobby.
It's a Ubisoft original.
They're boutique titles.
Ooh. But I also think that this is a game that does something that I feel the genre will have baked into it moving forward.
I just unlocked what you're about to talk about, and I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. So the game gives you an in-game currency that basically is map markers. And anytime you're on your map, you can press the down button or the D-pad, or you can hold it and it opens the map with it. But it takes a screenshot of where you're at and marks it on your map, and then you can mouse over it and click in and see what that photo is. And for a Metroidvania, you constantly are seeing shit that you can't quite do something with, but maybe you don't.
Like, where was that place?
Where was it? What was it?
This ability
and
that will finally let me get there.
It's that screenshot ability that I think
Mhm.
really separates it, because I've certainly played games like this where you can just set down markers and
Yeah.
Sure,
but
but
there are
like
even custom markers you can play.
Yeah, but then you're like, what the fuck did this symbol mean?
Right.
What was
like
my
not,
thought
not
here?
Not the same genre exactly, but Tears of the Kingdom. Like you can totally lay down different kinds of markers and go, okay,
Right.
that's where whatever the fuck.
Some treasure. Yeah.
And I know I can come back to this spot. But there have been times where I've come back to that spot in Zelda and went, what the fuck was I supposed to get here? I don't remember. Was it underground? Was it above? Was it up in the sky? I don't. Fuck. What was I supposed to do here? So it's not just having the marker. It's when it takes the screenshot, you can see, that door. That's the door I need to get through. And I got the thing that lets me get through these kinds of doors now. I need to go and find all those spots. That's super smart.
The other thing I like about it too is especially playing a game like this, it's really easy to chase shiny objects. So if you are chasing something down and you saw a new path, it's like, well, I kind of want to know where this goes. You can at least put a marker down to be like, I need to get back here. And again, you have that visual that helps out. Those things to be said, I think are really critical for the game. It has some incredible game feel. This is one of the smoothest Metroidvanias I've played in some time. Combat feels challenging, but yet just so much fun. There's some really cool stuff with parries. There's a relentless parry system that does a really cool animation. You have amazing slide mechanics, airwalk mechanics, long jumps. You can go in and do some really great.
And the combat is just, I mean, for me right now, it's just one button. It's X, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was going through some of the training, and they incentivize you to do that because they give you some of the time crystals to use at the shop to get stuff. So you're still getting something out of it. Because at first, usually, I'm like, I will just figure this out on my own. But I'm actually glad I did, because I learned about aerial combos, and like,
Oh yeah.
there's a lot they let you do to juggle the different enemies you're fighting with just relatively simple, like, just it's just different variations of directions and X, or holding X, or holding up.
The
And it all seems really incredibly, like, just very tightly designed. uh it's
the
amazing.
amulet
Like,
system helps
I'm
that
way
out
into
quite a
it.
bit too.
Yeah,
Because that is
I
something
got a couple of
where,
those.
yeah, and you can upgrade those as well if you find one you really like. But you start off with 3 slots and you can expand your necklace, and that's where you place them. So amulets come in sizes so far that I've seen 1, 2, or 3, and you can mix and match them. When you play a game like this, you kind of start to think like, okay, I want to have more health, or I want to have an extra hit on this combo chain. Like, that's always going to be helpful. But to what Johnny was calling out, if you start to take to more aerial combat, well, you can get a charm that allows you to do an increased damage while airborne. Or maybe you're going into an area that has a lot of flying enemies. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to put that charm on. Or maybe I go to the swamp where there's poison. I'm going to put the charm on that gives me a little bit of a resistance to poison. And you can start to get smart with it being a Metroidvania. The other thing I just recently unlocked is a really great fast travel system. So you are unlocking these totem areas that you can fast travel to distinct parts of the map. But you also have kind of a hub, to Johnny's point. That's where your forage is. That's where you can train in combat. So it makes sense to be like, okay, I'm going to go back here and do it. Story stuff, I think, has probably been the weakest for me so far. It's not bad at all. Like, this game is really high in enjoyment level, and all these other kick-ass mechanics and feel things stand out to me really high. The story so far has been just a step below that. And I think that that's not a slight against it.
It's a super simple story that they're
Yeah.
telling, right? Like,
Yep.
but
It gets a little bit more complicated when you get into it, but yes,
okay.
overall,
I like all of the other characters that are with you,
for sure.
because the main
It feels weird having other characters like you like
yeah.
Prince of Persia that I know. It's like, yeah, it's like you're the Prince of Persia, or I think in the original one you're finding the Prince of Persia. And then this one it sounds like that's also
He's
the case. Is it's kind of going back to the roots.
He's part of the Immortals, and there's like
Yeah.
5 or 6 other characters that it kind of reminded me of Hollow Knight, because I'll be exploring, and then I'll bump into this character in this particular area and have a little bit of dialogue with them. And did you? I've only ever played Sands of Time on the GameCube. Did you guys ever play any of the previous? I played a little bit of the original one, which is insanely difficult.
Yeah.
What about you guys? You played the first one, Bobby?
I've played a handful of them. I think Sands of Time is obviously the one that I probably spent the most time with. I think that was a huge release in that franchise for them for a lot of reasons.
I love that game.
Yeah.
Trilogy
I
was
played it.
huge.
Yeah.
I did play the reboot one that came out after Assassin's Creed did.
Yeah.
They kind of went a new direction where you had a ghosty companion thing that could save you when you fell, and I thought that game had some really cool ideas in it as well. But yeah, it's not usually been a franchise I've cared too much about, but this definitely went from whatever, it's fine, and to watching a trailer and going, damn, okay, they got some cool ideas here. It's great that the combat sounds like it has a lot of smart things in it and good feel, but also just looking at it, some really nice effects, some really good screen shake. Like it has the look of a game that just is cool, and there's something to be said about that.
It's also got, I know people who grew up with the franchise really wanted the platforming stuff. It's there. It's just done in a different way, and it's still challenging. So you will be satisfied. Maybe not like as much as you want from it, but when you have it, it's really thoughtful and done well. But yeah, that game that came out, well, it's coming out by the time you're listening to this, so you can pick it up. I believe if you're on PC, it's either through Ubisoft or through the Epic Game Store, but then I think it's on Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. I was
everywhere else.
not I don't know how into the I mean, it's not a very graphically demanding game, but apparently the
It's supposed
Xbox,
to run. Yeah.
yeah, the
Sorry, go
Xbox
ahead,
can
Bobby.
run it at a better frame rate than the PlayStation. Apparently, you can
I
actually get
believe
120 on
I believe
it.
friend of the show Jeff Grubb says it plays just fine on the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be fine. I'm sure that's where you will play it, and I'm sure
Probably.
it'll be a okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it runs great on handheld and it runs great on this computer I'm looking at right now.
Nice. Johnny, did you have anything else that you've been playing?
Uh, no, nothing that I
Okay.
haven't already talked about. Just just Baldur's Gate, uh, etc.
Cool. Well, I've still been putting a lot of hours into Tactics Advance, our pocket wheel game. That's still been a lot of fun. I did get to a part that is more bullshit than, than previous parts that I've played. But I'm still having a good time with that and unlocking new stuff and trying new strategies. But I did want to have something new to talk about for the show, and I found maybe kind of a banger.
Oh,
I've been playing Mobile Suit Baba.
as in Baba
Uh,
is you?
as in Baba is You. Yes. So the developer of Baba is You made an
Okay.
Into the Breach with Baba.
Okay, I saw this the other day,
It's fucked.
and I yeah. Sorry, go on, Chase. I'm
it's
trying to. Is it on
it's a
Steam?
it's on itch.
Oh, okay.
It's $4. It was free when it came out. I guess this came out in like December, and I missed it. I didn't see anybody talking
I
about it. It
mean,
was free then.
I'm on Mobile Suit Baba's itch page, Chase, and it looks like it's just on Windows.
Yes, I play this on
Mm,
a personal computer.
What?
I own a personal computer, and I sometimes play games on it. Go
damn.
figure. Yes. So now it's $4, and it's not a. It seems like it's going to be relatively sizable. Um, it says I think 43 missions, but those missions or there's 43 stars, but some like levels will have multiple stars per level, and you have to go back and replay them to get the other stars.
Yes, this game is very strongly inspired by subset games Into the Breach.
You
Yeah,
don't say.
the
I was.
dev wholly admits that. He's like,
Yeah.
it absolutely is. We totally just did that, and it's nuts. It really is. It's so the idea here is you play as Baba.
Mhm.
Baba is in a Baba or a Baba looking mech, and then there are other characters as well that you'll meet. There's it and me and Kiki and Gigi, um, and each of the characters and mechs have a different power, and they're all kind of into the breach style stuff where they can throw, or they can push, or they can
God damn.
jump and do a push when they land. And there are also these skulls that are they're basically the enemies. And so far, as far as I got, which is maybe about 10 levels into it, I haven't seen anything where it's going to predict an attack of, oh, this thing's going to shoot a laser beam or this thing's going to do something. It's more just that these skulls will walk into, instead of buildings, they are piles of fruit. And you want the piles of fruit to not be destroyed.
Sure.
So so
Naturally.
you're protecting from these skulls, and if the skulls walk into the fruit, then they die, and you don't want that. So what you do is you play it like Into the Breach, but in at least in the beginning stages in the corners, and then in later stages just out in the stage somewhere, are the same kind of Baba is you word structures. So you'll get like noun and is and a feature of that, an adjective, and so you'll see something like hill is stop, which means if you see these mountains, you can't walk through the mountains. The mountains are
Oh,
stop. You can't. They're
that makes sense.
yeah, easy stuff. Water is sink. If you go
Hmm.
into the water, you sink. If you hit an enemy into the water, they'll sink. But also there comes times where you can knock those phrases out. So instead of water is sink, you can knock that out or knock water out, or is, or one of them, so the phrase isn't complete anymore. And now you can just walk right over the water. Uh, so now you can do a little puzzle solving that way, or you can change water is sink, and you see another one that says forest, so you knock forest instead of water, and now it's forest is sink. So now you can sink all of the skulls by throwing them into the forest tiles instead of into the water tiles, which is generally pretty cool. And then it gets real Baba is you, where it just becomes a total mind fuck. And even where I am like 10 stages in, which I don't feel like is super far, there have been a couple bonus stages you can jump into, which similar to oh damn it, Bobby, what's the kind of recursion game that we played? Somebody's puzzle box.
Oh,
Uh, damn it.
Patrick's Parablocks.
Patrick Fairbox, thank you.
Yeah.
So similar to that, and also Bob Is You has missions like that where they're just kind of offshoots, and you can play here's some extra bonus hard missions, and those you'll get humbled real quick on. Oh God, what? How are you even supposed to do this? They'll even unlock new characters as you go on, and then you can bring those characters back to previous stages to unlock new stars and take on different and new challenges. It's really cool. It's a really interesting mixture of two games that I enjoy. One game that I
Yeah.
absolutely love, and one game I more respect in Baba Is You, and then
That
just seeing them
game
kind of slam together, you go, wow, this is just so smart. And maybe
and
it's too smart for me, but it's still
and
really cool.
yeah, I was gonna ask you in the same moments of I am a genius to
Yeah.
There's some of that.
I am mud.
I also watched a couple of YouTubers play it just to see how other people reacted to it, and you get that moment of, oh God, they're doing it wrong. Like the answer's right in front of you. It's obvious, man. It's obvious. And then there are other parts where it's like, how did he fucking do that? I would have never thought to do that. Like there's just little things, like if you land on one of the pieces of fruit as your character, it'll also get destroyed, but you can walk through it, and as long as you walk through it and get to a tile that's not landing on fruit, you're fine. To
Hmm.
which I would go like, that doesn't make any sense to me. You walked on, that shouldn't be how that works. But somebody plays it in one way, and you go, oh, that totally makes sense. Or they just knock the words in the right way to make, instead of fruit is weak, which means it'll die when it gets touched, it could be fruit is defeat, which means if anything touches the fruit, it dies. And so then you're like doing that Baba Is You thing where you're changing the whole scope of the level, or taking the ideas that you had and flipping them on their head. Where like Baba Is Win was like a favorite in when you're playing
Oh
Baba
yeah.
Is You. Instead of flag is win, you just knock the word Baba in it, and then, well, you're Baba and you're touching yourself, so Baba Is Win, you win.
Baba is
um
win.
it's really really cool. I think it's really fun.
$5. We didn't say that yet.
$4.
$4, I think.
$4? I thought it was
$4
$4.99.
US on itch dot
Okay.
So
Nice.
itch.io.
I think it's well worth that. People should give it a shot. It's really cool.
That's awesome. I hope that Subset allows it to be a thing. It sounds like it's
Yeah,
different enough.
Yeah, I think they're all friends here.
Oh yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
don't think that's
it would seem
an
kind of
issue at all.
strange. It's not like they're Rockstar or somebody going after.
Yeah, nobody can use R's in their titles anymore,
God.
but you can make your game look like Into the Breach if you wanted to.
So that
And
was
more games should.
yes.
I
Asgard's
agree.
Wrath 2, Prince of Persia Lost Crown, and Mobile Suit Baba.
Mobile Suit Baba.
Not a bad lineup of games.
Pretty good. So let's get into the deep dive, if you don't mind, boys.
Yeah.
And for this one, I brought a little show and tell. I showed it before, but I'll show it one more time. This is the PlayStation EyeToy. Um, I enjoy kind of doing these little show and tell. Look at these weird peripherals from things before. What are other ones that I've done? I did the e-reader for the Game Boy Advance. I did.
Mm-hmm.
I think I did the Power Glove.
We did the Power
I did
Glove.
that one. I've done a handful.
I don't know
of
if you
those.
want to count the video game magazine ones, but those are kind of show and telly.
Yeah. There's some of that in there. Um, so this is one that I don't really have a lot of personal experience with. I didn't own a PlayStation 2 growing up. It was only when I got into college where I bought one really cheaply and then bought all the games that I was told were really good, like Shadow of the Colossus and Killzone. And then you're like, wow, Shadow of the Colossus, great game. Killzone,
Yeah,
I don't know about that one.
it's the Halo killer.
Yeah, I don't know how well that did.
It didn't.
So I didn't really have a lot of experience with the EyeToy, but I remember seeing it being like an Xbox guy or a GameCube
Mhm.
guy and going, "Huh, that's an interesting thing. It's kind of cool." And then I think it's really interesting for how it's helped to shape the industry that we have now. Bobby was just talking about a VR game tonight,
Yeah,
and I think you can draw a relatively direct line from something like the PlayStation EyeToy
sure.
to VR
Do you think
technology
that
that
the
we have.
iToy and the Kinect were like more kindred spirits?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the Kinect is definitely a response to the
That
EyeToy and the additional
and then
um,
I
the
I
PlayStation
PlayStation
own a
VR is an
Connect.
evolution. Yeah, you
Did
do.
Yeah, yeah.
you know that?
So
I
so I wrote up a little thing. I'll try to make this not sound like I'm just reading something off a PDF here, but we'll give this a shot. So the PlayStation EyeToy, it's a webcam peripheral. It came out for the PS2. It released first in Europe on July 4th, 2003, and then it came over to America on November 4th, and then Japan would get it in 2004. Um, and the basic idea of the EyeToy is that it enabled gamers to make gestures and movements that the camera would track, and then those tracking things would become inputs for a bunch of proprietary games or modes within games that were on the PS2. It's not the first console peripheral to use motion as an input. I talked about the Power Glove that definitely had, if you watched The Wizard and you watched that guy
Oh
play the
yeah.
game and drive the car, like that's actually how that worked. It didn't work well, but it is how it worked. It did have some motion capabilities in it. There was also the activator for the Sega Genesis. Have you guys ever heard of the activator?
No.
So
no.
it's an octagon that would
Oh,
go on the
oh
floor.
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
And you
So there'd be like fighting games
yeah.
where
I'm,
you'd
I'm whipping my arms
it
back
was
and
like a
forth.
laser system. Like they would
Yeah.
have like lasers coming up. So the idea
Mm-hmm.
is kind of like a almost like a theremin kind of thing where you'd break the plane
Yeah, I think
and
we
and it
talked
would
about
use
that
those
on like a
inputs.
dumb peripherals episode at
We
one
probably
point.
did. We probably did. It's a silly thing. I never played
Oh,
with an activator.
remember
It sounds
remember
like
when tech was cool
hell.
when they were
Yeah,
just
like
putting all this weird
VR
shit out?
headsets. Nobody
Yeah.
gives a shit. A fucking octagon that you put around your
Yeah,
God.
man.
feet. Hell yeah.
Get in the octagon.
It's also the EyeToy is not the first camera that was on a video game system. Anybody know what that
Game Boy
was?
camera.
Game Boy camera. There it
Yep.
is, 1998.
I am been this close to buying one of those to hook up to my pocket.
They're pretty cool. They're pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Right?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. It's also not even the first home console camera because the Sega Dreamcast had the Dream Eye, which I had never heard about before. I've never seen a Sega Dreamcast Dream Eye before, but that was released in 2000, a handful of years before this. I don't know any games that took advantage of the Dream Eye. I mean, fishing controller all day, but I'd never heard anything about a Dream Eye. So the EyeToy, not necessarily the first, but it was in a way the best, and it did open up that kind of new avenue to game development that I think, you know, at least for camera technology, went on for a few console cycles, and then even today has spread into the AR VR stuff that we're dealing with now. So first, I wanted us to just take a look at the EyeToy here.
Yeah.
I have a silver one, which is the last version that they made. The first one was black, and
Yep.
it was bigger, it was longer, and it was more squared off. It looked like a PS2. It had the same kind of ridges on it. The silver one
I,
I
also
I had a
remember
had a
kind
much
of.
bigger base too.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember messing with one of those at the EB Games at the Alton Square Mall when I was just a lad.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was
So
the only
I
time I ever messed with one of those.
so one of the things I learned as I was researching this is that it actually it doesn't natively work with computers with PCs, but people have made custom drivers to
Of
allow it
course. I
to
was
work
just gonna
with
Yeah.
say,
with
like,
PCs.
yeah,
I was planning on having like a second camera angle set up, and I wanted to do it on my laptop, but the driver there were drivers also made for Macs,
Hmm.
but those drivers have been either like lost to time or the move to like a different Apple bit
yeah, the
set
file
or
Apple
whatever.
file
Yeah.
system, yeah,
Yeah,
You could
using
probably
ARM.
find it on Windows easier, I would imagine.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But even on Windows, it's got to the point of like I don't want to fucking hassle with this, so I guess I won't do that.
Yeah.
And if I was using it as a webcam, you wouldn't get to see what the actual thing looked like. So this worked out.
Imagine though, folks, a four
Uh,
by three chase.
you know what? I don't think I've done a stream of it on here. Maybe someday I will. But the Game Boy camera through an analog pocket, you could absolutely make as a webcam, and
Yeah,
maybe I'll do that at some point.
that'd be
I
fun.
I've I at least did that as a test a handful of years ago, and it was super cool. So
Nice.
we'll see. Maybe we'll do something with that later. Um, this is manufactured by Logitech, which fine makers of webcams everywhere.
That's what I'm looking at
Um,
right now. Two of them, three of them.
yeah, at least it's first generation. This one that I'm holding here is made by a different company called Namai. I have it later here. I'll say it. I'll say it correctly when I get to it. But the EyeToy is the first generation of it. It kind of looks like a miniature PS2, like I said. It was about 3.5 inches long, and it connected to the console using a standard USB 1.1 plug. All right, Bobby and Johnny, you both worked at Apple in a previous life.
Yes.
Mhm.
Do you guys remember how many megapixels any iPhone had?
I
Yeah,
mean,
probably most of them.
Yeah,
yeah.
well, okay. Like, what's so now the you guys haven't sold iPhone 14s, I don't think, but do you know how many megapixels an iPhone 14 has?
The rear one is over 40.
50. Yeah.
The rear
So,
camera is over 40.
so what I saw was the standard iPhone 14 has a dual 12 megapixel camera system,
Hmm.
and then
Oh, the iPhone 14, not the Pro.
Yeah,
the iPhone
Pro.
14 Pro has a 48 megapixel
Yeah.
main
Yes.
camera, is what it says. Um, the PlayStation EyeToy's resolution clocked in at a grand total of 320 by 240. So, do you guys have any idea of how many megapixels that equates to?
That is like
40p. That's not very many. Like,
it's like one or two.
yeah, 1 to 2.
It's 0.0768 megapixels.
Yeah.
So close to one.
Not close to one.
Not
No.
close to
Close
one.
to 7% of one. Yeah, no, it's not great. It's not great, but it didn't need to be great. Like that's kind of the whole point of the technology. It was made to be cheap, but it was also
Serviceable.
it worked in its cheapness. That's also 25 frames per second as well, so only the highest
Ooh.
quality that you're getting out of
I mean,
the
film is
PlayStation
shot.
EyeToy.
That's one more than what film is shot at.
That's
So,
That's the
fair
Switch,
enough.
baby.
Take that, Fast 10. Uh,
That's what Prince of
uh,
Persia is going to be running for you on Friday night.
fair enough, and I'll like it. But the whole thing cost $50 when it came out, which seemed
That
pretty
was
pretty affordable.
2002, 2001,
2004 or 2003, late
Okay,
2003 for Japan. It was 2004.
$50. So that around the cost of a game for that, right?
Yeah. Plus, it came with a game, which we'll get into in a
I
second.
think I remember that game.
Maybe you do. We'll talk about it soon. But first, we got to talk about where the EyeToy came from. The EyeToy is the brainchild of Richard Marks. So in 1998, Richard Marks, not much of a gamer. Instead, he was just an independent technology consultant for a number of different companies. But he was bored one day in California, and on a lark, he's thought, yeah, sure, I'll just walk through this game developers conference, whatever the hell that is. And he saw a demonstration of the then upcoming PlayStation 2. So he was
Hmm.
working on a lot of camera stuff in his day job. He actually built cameras for the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute's underwater exploration robots, which sounds pretty cool. Um, but so because he was working a lot with cameras, he wondered, hey, what would a camera work like on this piece of technology for a home video game console? That sounds kind of cool. So he mailed in his idea to Sony, and Sony offered him a job in their R&D lab. And while he was working on some other projects with them, he would work on his little camera project, and sometimes people would help him. He wasn't good at making video games, but people would send him assets, and he had like a little demo where
He's a
it was
good
a
boy. Not great at games, but he's a good boy.
yeah, he made like a demo where it's like a guy who's standing on a ball, and you'd use the motion of the camera to try to keep him balanced on the ball by pushing him one side or the other. And so with that help from his coworkers, he ended up showing the game to his boss, and his boss at the time was a guy named Phil Harrison. Does that name ring a bell to any of you
Yes.
guys?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. He's Harrison. He's done some stuff. So at the time, he was just the head of this R&D lab for Sony, and he thought the game had a lot of promise. And when I think it was just the next year, so this would have been 2001, 2002, somewhere around there. Um, Harrison got promoted to the head of Sony's European design studios, and then he had Marks present that work to a room of like 350 Sony developers, and people thought it was cool. Harrison said, "Hey, if you think this is something you'd like to work on, go talk to Rich
Sure.
and make something." And one guy there did. That guy's name was Ron Festejo, I believe is how you pronounce that, who was a longtime programmer at Sony. And those two would continue working on the tech and a video game to go with it. And that game would be EyeToy Play, which was the pack-in game for the peripheral. EyeToy
Is,
Play, is that the one you were thinking of, Bobby?
if it's the one that kind of looks like, you know, Japanese game show esque, where you're like doing the shapes,
popping bubbles and stuff.
you pop
Kinda,
bubbles.
yeah.
I think there was one where you're like a spider or a bug that you have to like climb, like you like use your hand. Like if I raise my right hand, it turns to the right, and I think it's like a bug going down that would turn, like it had four corners. It would turn on the corner. So like if you're going down, you raise your right hand, it would like turn and it's hard to explain this way.
Yeah,
But
so that's not sounding familiar to me, but they did make 3 EyeToy plays, so it's very possible that it was one of the sequels that game that you're talking about was in. They also everybody who made a game for the EyeToy made a game like that for the EyeToy that had some kind of collection of mini games that had something like that in there. So EyeToy Play featured 12 simple mini games that were perfect for showing off the tech and potentially attracting a new casual audience for the PS2, which is what everybody wanted at the time. You know, we had the hardcore gamers. They're taken care of. They've been playing PS2 for a couple of years now. They're playing their Grand
they're
Theft
playing
Autos
Tiger
now.
Woods 2003.
Absolutely. Like they look at a DualShock 2 and they go, I know how this works. But you know, your mom or a young child, they look at a controller and it seems intimidating and they don't know what to do with it and they just kind of put it down. So a lot of businesses, you know, Nintendo, Microsoft, Sony, they all wanted Sega before it died very
Yeah,
quickly. Like they were looking for ways of getting a more casual audience, and you know, some of them
that's what
like
we do now.
yes, we the casual hour, the casual audience. This is us, so casual. But you know, like the Dreamcast had Seaman, which you know you could talk to,
Right.
which
Yes.
I'm not saying Seaman is the casual gamer's dream,
Sure.
Oh
but
my God. Yes, please.
at least it was something that didn't require as much input from a controller and was a
You know,
novel thing.
you know what you mentioned. I don't want to like backtrack too much here, man. But
Yeah,
you
go for it.
mentioned this was like you could draw a line to VR.
Hmm.
I I would argue that you could draw a line to the Wii more so.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I think you draw. I think
You
that's
bump,
a
but
dot on
yeah,
Yeah.
like
yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, I've got stuff here about the Wii as well, and we'll keep getting into that as well. Because I mean, hey, Sony did the same thing. They kind of bounced
Hey,
off each other as well. Like Sony makes the EyeToy,
we've
you
been trying to find worse ways to interact with video games for a long time. So
know. And it is just continuing to kind of try to court that casual, more mainstream market, and motion gaming in one form or another is a way that they thought they could do that. And now VR still has elements of that motion in there, but they're also doing the VR thing, which is a slight change from what you were doing with the Wii or something like a PlayStation Move. Um, well, back to iToy Play. So 12 simple mini games. Mini games included Wishy Washy, which had players moving their body to clean dirty windows. I think that's probably the bubble game that you're talking about, Johnny. There was also Plate Spinner, where you'd have four plates that you'd have to physically move your hands to keep them spinning. And there was everybody's favorite Kung Fu, where ninjas would jump at you from off screen and you'd have to slap them away. I'm doing all the motions for these. Like I'm in an iToy right now, guys.
He is
So,
an iToy.
Wow.
That's what they call it.
iToy candy.
Damn it, Bobby.
So the iToy and iToy Play ended up actually kind of being a pretty big hit. iToy Play is listed as the 18th best-selling PS2 game with over 4 million units sold. And as of 2008, the iToy has sold a reported 10.5 million units worldwide.
Damn.
The iToy would see a number of updates. I mentioned I've got I guess it's kind of like a third generation, although the first one we talked about is the black one. The second generation is still the black one. I think it's just more, hey, we changed a couple of the components inside, things got a little cheaper, but it didn't really change. And then this third one that I have, the silver one, it changed the shell. It's much smaller. Um, Again, components got smaller, but all the functionality was basically the same. But it was made by a different developer for the silver one, and that manufacturer was named Namtai, which
Okay.
cool. I don't know anything else that Namtai is made.
Namtai?
Namtai.
Yeah. The iToy had 25 dedicated games.
Hang on one second, Chase.
Yeah.
I'm watching a video of Mr. Chef.
Okay.
And first of all, any videos you watch of this device is just like the people playing it are awesome because it's from the 2000s. But this one is like you're grating cheese. Every action is an incredibly phallic action that you just see a guy in the background
Absolutely.
just doing this nonstop.
It's perfect.
It's very good.
I did watch a couple of videos of more modern people playing it. There's I can't remember one guy's name, but there also is like Scott the Waz did a video on it a couple of years ago. That is, what is the iToy like in the 2020s? And the answer, not
rough.
Hey, it's 20 years later. That's not.
Yeah.
Things have evolved a little bit since then. So the iToy had 25 dedicated games for it, and pretty much all of them were minigame collections, and most of them were also based on licensed properties. Like Nickelodeon had one called Nicktoons Movin'. There was also a Sega one called Sega Superstars. Only 8 of those 25 games would actually come to North America. This thing was a much bigger hit in Europe, and also in Japan. It did a little better. And I think there were also like a number of Korean developed games for this that I saw.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Only 8 of them actually came to America. But there were also quite a few games that got iToy enhanced versions or optional modes and features in games that took advantage of the iToy. One of the relatively famous ones was Burnout Paradise on the PlayStation 3. So even though this thing was made for the PS2, it still worked. It was compatible with the PlayStation 3. But it allowed you to take a photo of yourself, and it would be put on like an in-game license.
Didn't it take a picture of you when wrecked? Also,
I don't think it was that one. Yeah, maybe.
I'm pretty sure it took a picture of you when it wrecked. I don't know if that
was the iToy version. I think maybe like the Xbox Vision camera did that one. I don't know if the iToy could.
Oh, I was too busy.
I can't remember.
Talking to people playing Uno with that thing.
fair enough. You're definitely right though that there was a Burnout, because I was also looking for that too. It was like, yeah, wasn't there one that would like take a photo of your face every time you got wrecked, and your person would get to see your face? I didn't see that specifically for the iToy. I do remember that happening. I am pretty darn sure that was for the Xbox Vision camera, and maybe it was for the PlayStation Eye, which was the sequel to the EyeToy, which was which was for the PS3. We'll talk about the Eye in a second here. There were also a handful of DDR games that had EyeToy exclusive mini
Of
games,
course.
a lot of rhythm stuff, and then somewhat similar to Burnout, but maybe a little bit different. Tony Hawk's American Wasteland and Tony Hawk's Underground 2 had a feature that let you import your face and map it onto a custom skater, to kind of mixed results. Some of them.
I could see that being rough.
Yeah.
It's like the thing that you go to at Six Flags to make a music video is basically what this is.
Yes, more or less. So I said Scott the Woz was not a big fan of it, but looking at just people playing it, I think the tech is still somewhat there. It's a step down from something.
Have you hooked up your PlayStation 2 to check it out?
I have not. No, I'm not.
It's a shame.
I don't have any EyeToy games, unfortunately. I just bought the thing. I don't think it works unless you have a game in there.
Well,
I mean, it's a step down from something like a Snapchat filter, but
yeah,
despite being put out 20 years ago, it still feels like kind of a crazy thing. I mean, I'm sure it feels crazy.
100%.
Like when you go from, what was the game you played, Asgard's Wrath 2 to
the
EyeToy, I'm sure you could see like,
it's no Mr. Chef 1. I'll tell you that much right now.
We live in a time where so many of these companies are like risk averse.
Yeah.
And to put out something like this, just like, let's see how it does. And like as Bobby said, and you too, like it is a stepping stone on the path that led us to where we are now, and we wouldn't be where we are now.
Sure, if right now COVID is still something about that. We still haven't really come out of that in a lot of ways from a business standpoint, especially from a video game business standpoint. VR, it feels like two extremes. We either have the hyper conservative, we're laying everybody off and we're going to skeleton crews, or we're putting all our money in this fucking crazy $800 technology that we think everyone's going to buy one day. And it's kind of nuts that both of those modes are still happening.
You know what? It would have been within a few years of this thing, and they could have made it work for the way that these games play. Man, could you imagine if they would have had like a grape lady reenactor with this thing, where you just had to fall after trying to smash the grapes on that news segment?
Yeah, if you just had the sound effect of the
Johnny's never seen that video.
That'd be great. There was a game that
you've never seen it.
Grape Lady?
Yeah.
Yes, of course I have.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you have to. It's certainly not anywhere near.
Was I born under a rock?
Mm-hmm.
Well, some people say. But there was a game. I think it was called Spy Toy, because it sounds like EyeToy. Get it? And
I get it.
All based around like secret agency stuff or secret agent kind of ideas. And one of the things is that you could turn your EyeToy into a security camera.
Ooh.
Which just meant that it would turn off your TV, or it wouldn't turn it off, but it would be like that lit black screen where everybody's like, yeah, I know the TV's on, it just hasn't clicked onto the picture yet. So it would be quote unquote off. But if somebody walked past, you could either program the EyeToy to make an alarm sound, or to just take a photo, and then you could go back and see, oh, that's the person who walked through my room. But you also would have to keep a PS2, a spinning disk drive on. Also, the camera had two different lights that would be on. One that it was connected, and one that it was doing something. So I don't think it was very.
All these fucking Zoomers that want to live in the 2000s had no idea the fucking struggle to just goddamn.
Yeah.
I just like the idea of like some kid's mom looking at the electric bill one month and going, "What the fuck happened?"
The what?
And be like, little Johnny over there had his fucking EyeToy on all night long, God damn
But
it!
Mom, I've got a dozen pictures of Big John going for the cookie jar. What's the big deal?
mean, bro, that much power.
I was trying to catch Santa Claus.
This guy's now double fisting tomatoes, by the way.
Jesus.
I can't stop watching this video of this guy.
You can, I mean, hey, you can just keep going. We'll be fine. So despite being a pretty successful piece of technology, it was quite limited. Like I said, it only had 25 games. Only 8 of those showed up here. But Sony would continue to kind of evolve that tech. We talked about the PlayStation Eye. That was the PlayStation 3 update to this thing. It was smaller. It had a better speaker on it. Um, I think when I first started thinking about the EyeToy, one of the games that I was thinking about was Eye of Judgment, which is a card game where you'd physically show the camera, or the camera would be like top down and looking at a mat that you would play cards on, like Yu-Gi-Oh style, and then the camera would look at those and show them on the TV screen, or even play online like that. That was not for the EyeToy though. That was for the PlayStation Eye. That was a PS3 game. So even my memory was a little suspect when it came to this. Eye of Judgment though, I never played it, but that seemed fucking wild. And then PlayStation 4 they just called it the PlayStation Camera, but they had that system as well. Each of those upped the resolution and the precision of the device. And I didn't own a PlayStation Camera, but I hear people say that thing worked pretty fucking well.
Like, not bad. Yeah.
You had to have one for VR, right?
Sure.
So
Xbox, Microsoft was also making stuff. We did mention the Xbox Live Vision camera that came out for the Xbox 360. Bobby, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm just trying to. I forgot Johnny wasn't here, of course, when we had to do a monthly preview. So
fair enough.
That I was going to show this video in the background of the guy beating off some tomatoes, but
you got to deal with my dumb face.
You got to deal with your dumb face instead.
Maybe Bobby can link that on the.
It's in chat here.
So
it'll be on. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So
let's see. Let's see what's so. Okay.
So they would go. So the Xbox Live Vision cameras for the Xbox 360, but then they would certainly lean into that technology when it came to the Kinect for the 360 and then the Xbox One. Johnny, you okay? You okay? You enjoy the tomato? You enjoy the tomato video?
It's pretty good.
Yeah. All right, I'll watch it after the episode.
The guy looks like when Trump dances.
Everybody on the EyeToy did, Chase.
But yeah, I feel like there was a real shift from PlayStation to Xbox when Microsoft came out with the Kinect. It felt like camera and motion control stuff is now our thing.
Yeah,
is what Microsoft is saying, and everybody kind of forgot that PlayStation did this stuff. And then at that same time, this is definitely when we're getting the Wii, and motion gaming is also going in that kind of direction, and the Kinect is a bit of a response to that as well, and the PlayStation Move is like Sony kind of reincorporating. Oh, what if we took like the motion nunchuck control device stuff from the Wii, and what if we combined that with the PlayStation Eye and PlayStation Camera and doing stuff with that?
Right.
You had developers doing cool things like Johann Sebastian Joust with the PlayStation Move controllers, and all of these things kind of have their roots back to the EyeToy. So today we did talk about a little bit like motion and camera based gaming. Those have kind of fallen off to the wayside at this point, and I would say they've been replaced by more of the AR and VR projects. And
yeah.
But I don't know where that tech would be if it wasn't for something like the EyeToy and being that kind of stepping stone. Like
the EyeToy walked so the VR could run.
Sure, but not too fast though, because you'll get motion sick and throw up.
Yes. Yes.
So where are some of our key players now, you might ask? Phil Harrison, you know him, you love him. He left Sony in 2008. He bounced around to a number of gaming companies after that. He worked at Atari until 2010. He worked at Gaikai until they got bought by Sony in 2012. Gaikai was like the cloud gaming stuff.
Yeah.
Turned into like the PlayStation Now stuff that they're doing now. And then he also worked at Microsoft until 2015. And then he served as the product manager for Google Stadia, which,
Hell yeah.
went great. No problems there. And then he left Google in September of 2022 after they shut down Stadia. And it doesn't say what he's doing now. I assume he's just on a boat somewhere.
Hopefully enjoying life somewhere.
Yeah, like he doesn't need these fucking jobs. He got his
He's
cash and got the
worked.
fuck out. I always enjoyed listening to Phil Harrison at things
Yeah.
like E3. I enjoyed his voice and his enthusiasm. He was kind
Yeah.
of he did kind of look like a weird alien man sometimes, but I don't know. I enjoyed Phil Harrison. Ron Festejo left Sony in 2010 after a 9-year stint there as a programmer. He then co-founded the game developer Noodle Fruit,
I don't know if I know them.
NOODLFROOT.
Noodle
And then he worked
fruit.
Noodle Fruit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then he worked for Microsoft from 2012 to 2014, where he worked on HoloLens, which is the Microsoft
Oh yeah.
AR
Yeah.
technology. So there is kind of a direct line somewhere there. His LinkedIn page is now listing him as a producer and creative director, but it doesn't say where. So I think it's more of like a consulting kind of job at this point, or like a freelance thing. So that's what he's been doing. And then for our good pal Richard Marks, he left Sony in July of 2018 after a 19-year career there. Then he
Damn.
worked at Google for about 5 years, and now he is working as a professor at the University of North Carolina's School of Data Science and Society. So
Interesting.
that is the story of the PlayStation EyeToy, kind of funky little device that kind of worked, kind of didn't, but I think has really helped usher us into the era we are in now. For better or for worse, with VR.
That's
And I think
awesome,
that's kind
man.
of cool. I
Yeah.
think it's had a cool story and interesting. One of the things that I didn't know going into the research stuff for this is how much of like a European influence it had. Like a lot of this
Sure.
stuff was happening in Europe, and it came out first in Europe, and it sold really well in Europe, and it had more of the games come out in Europe than it did in the U.S. And I guess I would have expected, maybe it's just because I'm a typical American, but I would have expected probably does better here. There's more people here. Why wouldn't like that's
Sure.
they want to sell things in America because that's where they do better usually. But that didn't sound like it was necessarily the case with the iToy, even though certainly there was a lot of people who bought them here, and it
Sure.
led to other devices that also got a lot of play here. But that's it. That's the
Nice.
deep dive today, and I will send it back over to Bobby to help.
Well, Chase, you always do such a good job of show and tell, and we greatly appreciate it. Sorry we couldn't show some of those fun videos in the background, but we'll link to them in the show notes if you are listening to this. And as Chase said, go back and watch if you want to see a little bit more of that item he had on our YouTube channel or Twitch. We've had we're off to a great start this week. Chase and I, as we mentioned, we checked out Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown on Monday night. We've got a quick look out for Zillions. We talked about the PlayStation EyeToy tonight with Chase's deep dive. We've got another quick look planned for Cobalt Core. And then on Friday, we're going to check out that wild and wonderful Pal World. You can follow along on all of our social links that aren't working on stream here, but it's at the Casual Hour everywhere. You can find us on Linktree, Twitter, all that fun stuff. Chase, what about you? What do you got going on?
Well, I forgot to promote it on my Twitter, so I will promote it now and then try to remember tomorrow when we're awake still. But there is a new episode of Chase K Plays Stadium Brats out. I believe this is the one where I've beaten. I think I've beaten the Prime Cup now. I've beaten the stadium. I haven't beaten Pokemon Stadium everything, but I've beaten the stadium portion of Pokemon Stadium. So I've got all the trophies and all the cups, which means that it's now on to the Gym Leader Castle, which is the final challenge to take on. I brought good friend of the show, Pierce Corshane, back, and we ran through a couple of gym leaders. So I think there's kind of a light at the end of the tunnel on that now. Only a few more episodes left. We'll see. Maybe I'll try to get Johnny back on here at some point, and then
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe it'd be fun to do like a
Whole
final
gang?
episode with the whole gang. Yeah, that could be cool.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll see. We'll see. And then I'll have to figure out something new to play for that. So keep your eyes peeled on Chase K Plays. And then speaking of Pierce, we also are bringing back Pilot Program finally. It's been a while, but we should be recording a new episode on the Twilight Zone next week, and then that episode probably will come out sometime right around the end of January. So very exciting, very very happy to get back to Pilot Program. I've missed it. I've missed watching random episodes of television and then talking about them with a good friend. So that'll be fun. We'll check out some of the other episodes that we've done on shows like Seinfeld or The Boys or Sailor Moon, MASH. You can go to Pilot Program Podcast, something, blah, blah, blah. Put it into Google or do the...
I got your link tree here, man. It's got everything in it, right?
Yeah, it's there in the chat.
There you
go.
go.
Go look at that. You'll find it. But that's all I got.
That's all. All right. We'll be back live Friday night with Power.